So today we're going to have a talk about the EU reset that Starmer has been on a journey and a mission to do over the summer. And we have to ask the question, has it been a success or has it been a bust? Now, ultimately, I will say, and I'll put my cart out immediately and say, yes, this has been a success. That relations between not only the UK and the rest of Europe, we're not even talking about the EU, but just other European countries, especially in the wake of Brexit, was at an all-time low. So there was a huge benefit to Starmer going out there and having those conversations with people like Schulz, Macron, and other European leaders. That was not a negative or just nice words being passed about, because that is what diplomacy ultimately at its core is. Countries speaking to each other and engaging each other in constructive and good dialogue. People who think that diplomacy or that all Starmer got was just nice words, I think that is a fundamental misstep and a huge misunderstanding of how international diplomacy works. And for those people who don't think that words matter in international diplomacy, then you might want to look up the exact reasons why the Korean War happened, because at the time, the UN's defense secretary did not happen to mention South Korea in a speech. And look what happened to that. So words do indeed matter in politics, in diplomacy, in foreign policy. And ultimately, Keir Starmer was going into many of these leaders and almost starting again from rock bottom. And quite frankly, where we have come away to say that, has the UK's relationships been improved, been reset, as Starmer would say, with many of these countries? Absolutely. And bear in mind, Starmer did not come away with nothing. With Olaf Scholz and Germany in particular, we have now started on a path for a bilateral treaty to be signed next year to look at defense. That is not nothing. That is incredibly important when you look at the wider context of what is really going on at the moment, especially in Ukraine, where it is the largest conflict since World War II going on in Europe. I think that defense cooperation between two of Europe's largest spenders of defense, given that context, pretty important, especially where you could be looking at what happens or what might happen if Donald Trump wins in November. Now, again, all that, touch wood, hopefully he doesn't. But should Donald Trump win in November, bear in mind, all of the Europe's security has been based on the fundamental belief of NATO triggering Article 5 and that the US would come and help should Europe be attacked. If Trump wins, that's out the window. We know that for quite some time. We know that's out the window. So this deal, especially set to be finalized and signed next year, is really important given that context. So Starmer did not come away with nothing. And bear in mind that UK and German relations, again, because of Brexit, have been, rock bottom. Starmer came away, honestly, with this reset, very, very good indeed. Now, a lot of people are, of course, going to be pointing to the fact that, bowler hat man, the EU just said we ain't going to be we're opening, the trade and cooperation agreement. We ain't going to be reopening that. To that, I say, okay, fine. That's fine. Because what have I been saying? Again, this is why I keep on saying people don't listen to me. But what have I been saying about what Starmer's ultimate strategy is? I think this is Starmer continuing the Ming-Va strategy from the election with you know, how maybe he intends to sort of continue with Europe. You've got to look at the fact of what happened at the election. There are a number of seats, and it is worth bringing up, there are a number of seats where Reform came in second to Labour. Now, what would happen at the next election if Starmer decided we are just going to abandon our red lines and we're just going to sort of fully rejoin and commit to Europe? What do you think is going to happen politically there? Labour does have a worry, and I think quite rightly so, to be worried about a revanchist Farage movement in its own, shall we say, backyard. That is something Labour should be quite worried about. Because at the next election, let's say, I don't know, Starmer pushes, I don't know, single market customs union. Let's say Starmer does that. What do you think Farage's reaction is going to be? He is going to go full bore into the whole Brexit's being reversed, Brexit's being betrayed, the British people are being betrayed. Now, we do know, when you look at the polls, there is Brexit regret. We know that. And we have seen people in Labour putting pressure on Starmer to abandon some of those red lines. And we've seen that with the youth mobility scheme. Starmer hasn't ruled that out completely. So that is, again, something that they could do. But of course, you've got to worry about what might happen potentially at the next election. Because there is a scenario where what could happen is, let's say there is an increase in Farage winning MPs. Let's say he wins more MPs at the start, but then you also get a worry that also the Conservatives also going to drive that, driven by the fact that we have a very right-wing cheerleader press for Brexit, who, if Starmer were to turn on, rejoin the single market customs union, they would jump on board that bandwagon. And you could be in a situation where Parliament gets into a hung Parliament situation where it is a Conservative Reform coalition. A coalition I don't think that would last too long, mind you. It would be definitely fraught almost from the word go. But it's not too far from beyond reality of that potentially happening. And this is why Starmer, as much as, I've said before, I want to sort of rejoin, I want the UK to rejoin the EU. That to me is the ultimate end goal. And him doing this slowly, I think that's a valid strategy when you think in the wider context, of maybe a loss in seats to, maybe the Conservatives regain seats from the Lib Dems, maybe some, Labour sort of re-wins, they win there. Reform rises in their vote potential tally as well. Maybe at that point, you see a hung Parliament with them forming a pact to go into a coalition together. Or after the election, they form a coalition. It's not beyond the realms of possibility of happening, but it's something I think Labour should be, on top of, and something that they've got to keep an eye on. So them being sort of slowly, softly, what is it? Walk softly and carry a big stick? Maybe, they're walking softly, not with a big stick at the moment, but being sort of walking softly with this. Maybe we get into the next sort of term with Labour and they go, well, look, guys, as I've always said, you get into a situation where Labour can turn around and go, this is Brexit, guys. This is as best as it is ever going to be. We've tried to improve it, but this is as best as it is ever going to be. There's only the other option of rejoining, of either, becoming full EU members or rejoining the single market and customs union. Ultimately, I still believe that is what the direction that Labour is going, as it sure seems like it from so far and the way that things are going. So, back to our sort of original question: has Starmer's reset been successful? Yes, I absolutely do think it has been successful. Has it not achieved some of its aims? True, hasn't achieved some of those aims. But we're still, what, less than a couple of months into this Labour's government. They've got 4 more years. There's still plenty of more time to go on this. And also, must also always point out that like geopolitical, economical winds will always end up blowing the UK back into the EU in some way, shape, or form. That is inevitable. But hey, let me know what you think down below. I know some of you will always let me know what you think down below. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, links down below. Buy me a coffee link where you can, buy me coffee, the Patreon page, the Pony Club, and of course the YouTube thank you button. So as always, we'll see you all next time.